Well, they're supposed to look out for you, but today we learned they're, well, looking out for themselves, at least first. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau workers just voting to unionize. Mercedes Schlapp says that's not good for consumers. She's back again along with Ron Meyer and Steve Laser. Mercedes, what do you make of this?
Well, it's not good for consumers. We saw this with the TSA, the Transportation Service Agency, administration, when they decided to unionize as well, you know, where it should be more about national security and protecting the flyers, and they're more concerned about what they need to wear and what benefits they're going to get. What's interesting with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is that this came about because of office space. They're moving into new headquarters. They're concerned because they're in cramped spaces working right now. I mean, come on. If you're part of a startup company, you're in a basement, you're cramped up in an office. I mean, they're like prima donnas in this way. So I've got to tell you, it's unfortunate. We know that they're more concerned about protecting themselves than they are about necessarily dealing with protecting our consumers right now.
Steve, I'm maybe showing my ignorance here, but is this protection board, it's a government agency, right? Someone told me it would be like a Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae deal. So, not that that's a great stellar example, but that unionizing it would seem to be not an ideal priority.
Well, I support, I have to say this first, I support the right of all workers to collectively organize and bargain to get better working conditions.
As they're organizing? As they're for the first time organizing?
You know, I think every worker has the right to do that, and I think if you don't do that, you're not going to get the best wages and benefits that you can from whoever management is.
You're working for the government. I think you can count on it.
Well, you know, not necessarily. You know, and I think I support the conversation that's going to take place. You know, I don't think necessarily that they deserve their own offices and things like that. But you know what? They can give certain things up if they want to get that. They can give up wages. They can, you know, not get as good benefits and things like that. But I think envy here is the wrong thing. I think a lot of the people sometimes who oppose unions, they approach this from envy. If you want these things, then you should collectively organize as well. You should form a union and get these things yourself. That's the answer, not to attack people.
Well, you might be right, but Ron, I just worry that when a group's first priority is to unionize itself, methinks it's not looking at anyone beyond itself, at least initially, and that's not encouraging.
Well, it certainly shows that greed and self-interest are not only limited to the private sector. It shows that every single person, and especially, you know, these types of agencies, certainly have a self-interest. They're certainly, you know, wanting some nice things for themselves. I think that we have to wonder, well, where's the Taxpayer Protection Agency? And I think the problem with private sector unions, and one of the reasons why FDR actually opposed them, is because not only do they collect for the bargain, but they can also they can really just pay their employers by actually giving huge campaign contributions. So there's no one actually arguing for the taxpayer. Unions donate to the politicians, and the politicians decide the salaries. And so we have this symbiont relationship that's really destructive. And that's why if there is collective bargaining, there shouldn't be political donations, that you really have to pick one or the other. Otherwise, we have a really vicious cycle where the taxpayers get really, really hurt.
Mercedes, my only takeaway from this is that would they be more sympathetic as a group then to union entities versus non-union entities, and would that be a built-in bias?
Well, the way I view it is that you know, you're looking at the fact that the unions itself, I mean, you're talking about when you look at, for example, TSA, the majority of that union money, only 3% goes to, like, Republican candidates. The rest of the money that they're collecting, they're going to liberal causes, Democratic candidates. So again, it's incredibly biased, I believe, and I think we're going to see this with this particular bureau, which in fact they get higher wages than regular government workers. So, you know, again, their biggest complaint in this case was about office space, which I believe is just so ridiculous, especially when we're considering sequestration cuts and you're having, you know, the Pentagon furloughing their civilian employees.
Well, my only rap against it, Steve, is that we had, even before this Consumer Protection, supposedly the Securities and Exchange Commission looking at safeguarding this sort of stuff, and the FDIC in the case of bank holders, deposit holders. So we just created a new entity here that I guess is going to work along with these, supervise these. I have no idea. But it's just another administrative mix, right?
Well, you know what? I will give this to Mercedes and to Ron. If they're willing to join the Democrats and get rid of Citizens United, I'll get rid of unions contributing to campaigns and things like that. If we get rid of
IRS targeting all of the above.
Well, I want to get rid of that anyway.
Okay.
But let's get rid of Citizen United, then I'll go along with unions not.
By the way, you're not using that as a justification for what the IRS did targeting these groups.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Ron, it's a whole other area. I wish we had more time to discuss that.
Yeah, I know.
But that's Steve's bombshell. He's very good at these bombshells right at the end of a discussion. Touche, my friend. All right, that'll do it here. We'll continue to monitor the fallout from all of these scandals, popular and otherwise. See you then.